All right, let's get into it. You know, if you follow the world of investing, there is one name that is just impossible to ignore right now, Cathie Wood. She is, and I mean this, one of the most fascinating and definitely one of the most polarizing figures on Wall Street today. Her story is just this wild roller coaster of incredible highs and some truly gut-wrenching lows. So today, we're going to unpack all of it.
So, at the absolute peak of her fame, back in that crazy year of 2020, Cathie Wood just seemed to have the magic touch. I mean, everything she touched turned to gold. Her main fund, the ARK Innovation Fund, put up this unbelievable number, a 152% return in 1 year. That wasn't just good, it was legendary. It turned her into a global investment superstar overnight. But, as we all know, what goes up, especially in the world of high-flying tech stocks, can come crashing down just as fast. And boy, did it. Just 2 years later, the whole market flipped, and that very same fund, it plummeted. A 67% loss. All those massive gains that felt so permanent, poof, gone. And the whole story around her started to change, big time.
And really, that brings us to the core question of this whole saga, right? What are we supposed to make of these insane swings? Is Cathie Wood a genuine visionary, someone who can actually see the future of tech before anyone else, or is she more of a high-stakes gambler who just had an incredible hot streak that finally ran out? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go back to the beginning.
See, Cathie Wood wasn't born into the Wall Street elite. Not at all. Her journey started a long, long way from the trading floors of New York. And understanding her early life and career is actually critical to understanding the unique, super high-conviction investment style that would eventually make her so famous.
Her whole foundation was built on some serious academic discipline. Born in LA to Irish immigrants, she graduated with the highest honors from USC. But, you know, maybe the most pivotal influence on her was her mentor, the famous economist Arthur Laffer. He's the one who really taught her to focus on the big picture, on macroeconomics, a way of thinking that would basically define her entire career.
And look, this was no overnight success story. I mean, just look at this timeline. We are talking decades of grinding it out on Wall Street. Starting as an economist way back in the 70s, spending 18 years at one firm, co-founding a hedge fund, and then becoming a chief investment officer at a massive firm, AllianceBernstein. She was a seasoned pro managing billions of dollars long before ARK was even a thought.
Okay, so this is where the story really takes a sharp turn. It's 2014, she's got a very secure, very prestigious job at AllianceBernstein. But she has this idea, an idea that her bosses thought was just, well, too crazy, too risky. And her decision to walk away and chase that idea anyway, that changed everything.
So what was this radical idea? It was all centered around this one powerful concept, disruptive innovation. She wanted to build funds that invested only in the companies that were set to completely change the world, to upend entire industries. The true game changers, the technologies that don't just improve things, they make the old way of doing things totally obsolete.
And this wasn't just some vague concept. She had a very specific playbook. Her entire research process, her whole firm, is built around these 5 core platforms. You've got DNA sequencing, robotics, AI, energy storage, and blockchain. She believes that these are the building blocks of our future, and every single company ARK invests in has to be involved in at least one of them.
So with ARK Invest now up and running, Wood wasn't just another fund manager. She started making these incredibly bold, very public predictions about where the world was headed. And we're not talking small calls here. These were huge, often contrarian bets that put her in direct opposition to pretty much the entire Wall Street consensus.
Her call on Tesla is probably the best example of this. So it's 2018, and to put it mildly, Tesla was struggling. The market was super skeptical, and that's when she comes out with this price target, $4,000 a share. That number sounded absolutely insane. It implied the stock would have to go up over 1,200%.
I really can't overstate how bonkers this sounded to mainstream analysts at the time. She was widely mocked for it. People thought she was completely disconnected from reality. But she didn't budge. She even wrote an open letter to Elon Musk telling him not to take the company private because she was so convinced everyone else was wrong about its value.
And then this happened. In 2020, Tesla's stock just went vertical, exploding over 740% in that year alone. Her ridiculous prediction didn't take 5 years to come true, it took about 2. And that single call transformed her from a niche manager into a Wall Street oracle, at least in the eyes of many.
And that wasn't a one-hit wonder.
She applied that exact same long-term, super high-conviction thinking to crypto. While a lot of mainstream finance was still calling Bitcoin a scam, she was one of the very first major fund managers to buy in. And she's since made this jaw-dropping prediction: Bitcoin over $1 million by 2030. It just shows you how consistent her worldview is.
But the same aggressive strategy that fueled that incredible rise also held the seeds of a massive collapse. The high-risk, high-reward nature of her portfolio meant that when the market finally turned against those speculative tech names, the crash was every bit as dramatic as the climb.
This all led to a very public clash of ideas. You had Michael Burry, the guy famous from The Big Short for predicting the 2008 crash, and he took out a massive bet against her fund. He saw a classic bubble, plain and simple. Wood's response was sharp. She basically said he was using old-world thinking to analyze new-world technology, and that he just didn't get it.
And, well, this chart really tells the whole story in one picture. You see that meteoric climb peaking in early 2021, and then the brutal, steep drop all the way through 2022. This is exactly the kind of extreme volatility that critics like Burry had been warning about.
So what did all this mean for the actual people who invested their money? Well, a really tough analysis from Morningstar came out saying that over a decade, ARK's funds had actually destroyed $14.3 billion in shareholder wealth. Now, you might be asking, how is that even possible with those huge returns? It's because a ton of investors piled in after the big run-up, near the very peak, and then they panicked and sold during the crash. It was a classic case of buying high and selling low, on a massive scale. But here's the thing. Despite the crash, despite the critics, Cathie Wood has never, ever wavered in her long-term vision, not one bit. So to really understand her, you have to understand the future that she sees, the world she's investing in today. So let's just step into that world for a second. What does it look like if she's ultimately right about all this?
Well, first, transportation as we know it would be completely unrecognizable. Fleets of self-driving electric taxis would make getting around super cheap, maybe even making it pointless for most people to own a car. A shift like that, in her view, would cause the demand for oil to just collapse, completely remaking the global energy and auto industries.
In healthcare, the vision is maybe even more profound. You'd see breakthroughs in gene editing, technologies like CRISPR, leading to actual cures for diseases like cancer that we currently think of as a death sentence. Medicine would shift from just treating symptoms to literally fixing the problem at the genetic source, totally changing how long and how well we live.
And finally, our financial system would be turned on its head. Blockchain and digital money, like $1 million Bitcoin, would replace traditional banks. Finance would become decentralized, with transactions happening instantly between people, giving us all way more control over our own money.
This quote right here really gets to the very heart of her entire belief system. It's a deeply optimistic way of looking at the world. For her, technology isn't just about making money on the next hot stock. It's about finding the answers to the world's biggest challenges, from disease to climate change. And she's betting that solving those huge problems will be an incredibly valuable thing to do.
So we're left with this massive question. Will her unwavering belief in this techno-optimist future ultimately pay off, cementing her legacy as a true visionary? Or will ARK just be remembered as a cautionary tale, a story about the dangers of hype and flying a little too close to the sun? The truth is, her story is far from over, and for now, the jury is still out.